Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the second episode of Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. My name is Alex Henry, and I'm joined with,
Tori Haber, what's up, guys?
and a lot has happened, Tori, in the MMA world.
Yes.
And there's no fight this week. The UFC's given us a break, which I don't want a break, but I guess they need a break. Dana White needs a break.
For sure.
So there's just a lot of news that we're going to recap and cover stuff that's happened and stuff that is to happen. So it might be a little shorter than a regular episode, but it's still going to be very fun and important, right, Tori?
I'm very excited. Yes, a lot has happened in the MMA world. I mean, crazy. So many new fight announcements, different pound for pound rankings. I mean, number one pound for pound king getting dethroned. I mean, just you could talk about what has happened this past week for hours. There's just so many
Yeah.
things to cover. So I'm very excited.
And that's what we're going to start with. Let's start with UFC 278, Salt Lake City. It was crazy. We're going to just cover the main card. So Tyson Pedro, Harry Hunsucker, very first fight. Tyson Pedro came out. I think he finished it in like a little over a minute.
A minute and 5 seconds. Yes,
A
crazy.
minute and five
First
seconds.
round.
What did you think about that fight, Tori?
I mean, okay, this was the one pick I had that was on the dot. I had on my verdict account, I had Tyson first round knockout, just because with the research that we did, if you look at Hunsucker's record, this man has never been past the first round in his MMA career. Now 7-6, I believe. Whether he's getting finished in the first round or his opponent is, and it was his debut at light heavyweight, and Pedro was just looking real good. He's still younger, so I don't know. My instinct just said Pedro, and I mean, look what happened. He got hit by a body shot and just went down and went out with some ground and pound. So that's
Do,
awesome.
do you think Harry Hunsucker gets cut from UFC? He's really I I want to love him. I'm from Ohio. He's from Painesville. He looks, he's the hurricane. He's got the hurricane tat, but he's just not really, in my opinion, I don't know if he's ready for UFC. Maybe UFC brings him back, but I think it might, they're always bringing people on, taking people out. Harry Hunsucker could be somebody I might take out, but what do you think?
Yeah, in terms of that, I mean, you can't even say I mean, he's an exciting fighter because all of his first round, but like he hasn't even proved himself, I guess. We don't know what he's like at all past the first round. I mean, it's either kill or be killed with this guy. Lately he's been getting pretty killed. So I mean, his record's almost 50-50. He's 7-6. I I don't think there's much for him. I mean, he
Right.
gets kind of shot. He actually is one of the few where he verbally tapped out in the first round one time. He was like, "I'm done," and stopped. So I don't know. Maybe he can come back. You never know. But for now, I think he might get cut.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Speaking of fighters that have been cut and came back, the next fight, which I wasn't excited for, shouldn't have been moved to the main card. Whatever. We were both wrong on our prediction. It was the Wu Yan versus Lucy Pudialova fight, which I think we were both pronouncing that wrong the
Yeah,
entire podcast last time. But these
yeah,
names are hard.
they
Jake
are.
Murren, if you're listening to this, the other guy I do UFC podcast with, you're being too tough on the names. These names are hard to
The
pronounce.
names are very hard to. It's we learn. You live and you learn and you grow.
Yeah.
That's how it works with these names.
I
You
didn't I
learn.
didn't wake up and know how to say Khabib Nurmagomedov.
No,
That took
no.
time.
It took time for me to be able to pronounce Khabib or Habib.
Right.
I still
Right.
can't. I don't even know which one's right. So,
Who
anyways,
knows? But what did we have to, I mean, it doesn't have to be much, but it was it TKO?
yeah, it was a second round knockout by Pudialova. Lova, I believe is how you pronounce it. It was her first fight back in the UFC. Before she got cut from the organization, she was on a 4-fight losing streak. So then she ended up leaving. I forget what organization. She went to a smaller organization, kind of rebuilt her record, was winning, I think, 4 in a row, came back, looked good. Looked good. Then yeah, knocked out in the second round.
I mean, there's not much more to say. I mean, it
Yeah.
was all right fight. I don't
Yeah.
shouldn't have been a main card fight, but I guess respect to Lucy, she showed up, did what she had to.
Yeah.
Next fight, I got right, you were wrong. But I think we could both agree it wasn't the fight we wanted to see. It wasn't the people's main event. That would be Mr. Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili. Merab winning by decision and unanimously, I believe, as well. So
Mhm.
what did we have to think about? What do we think about that fight?
I mean, there were some parts where I was like, everyone already expected Jose to have great takedown defense.
Hmm.
But like that's kind of a spot I was correct on, but it was too much defense. There was no offense on Jose's side of the fight. I mean, even when he had times to capitalize in the third round, I'm like, dude, you have to go full out or nothing because apparently his team believed he was winning. He was getting controlled. And
Yeah.
but he was getting control of the guy that Marab didn't accomplish the position, but Jose wasn't able to accelerate on where he wanted to be on the feet. So Marab, I think, won that fairly. Just Jose, there was zero offense. Like not walking forward, he almost looked stiff and still the whole fight. So that was just sad to see. Like it was almost making me angry and like anxious. I was like, just
Mhm.
something, throw something. Like you can,
Yeah.
you have the ability to capitalize. Like Rob has been finished before. Just even if you get knocked out, just at least try because you have something to prove to the world. And he just did. It almost looked like he was stuck that whole fight. Landed some good strikes earlier, but I mean, just no offense on Aldo's side, and so he's got controlled for all three of the rounds.
Yeah. Something I definitely want to mention is that I was talking to somebody about this, is that wrestling starts on the feet.
Yeah,
People don't, a lot of people think of only takedowns and ground game. Wrestling matches start on the feet. And when I said that Marab was going to be a difficult opponent for Jose as a wrestler, people then go, "Well, he didn't take him down. He didn't take him down."
yeah,
Correct. Which, by the way, Jose Aldo's defending all those takedowns was really impressive. But Marab did win by his wrestling
he
because
did.
despite not getting those takedowns, he was able to still have offensive control in the clinch on the cage and not
Those
lose his
knees.
position on. Yeah. And let's talk about that. When he was kneeing him to the inside of the thigh, had him on the cage, and Jose Aldo shaking his head no, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Do
Yeah,
something. And not only am I thinking, what are you doing? Do something. But then he's kind of saying, this doesn't hurt. I can do this all day. And what does he do when he comes out in the third round? He switched stands. And why
yeah,
did he switch stands?
he was hurt.
Probably because those knees to the thigh really hurt.
Yeah,
And it was pretty upsetting. But yeah, I think Marab won um fair and square. I could see if maybe somebody wanted to give him the first round, but I wouldn't.
yeah.
Um,
Me
yeah,
neither. And I was listening to Aljamain Sterling's podcast, and he was talking about it. And in wrestling, I'm not never wrestled. I'm starting to learn more about the sport. You have when your fingers touch the mat, is that a takedown? Like in college wrestling, that's what Aljamain said. When your hand touches the mat, it's considered a takedown, but sometimes not in MMA.
right.
And so Aljo was like, he did take Jose down because there was one point where Aldo, I'm not Aldo, wait, yeah, Jose Aldo. I thought I was saying Aljo. He did reach the floor, and just not in MMA. They don't really count that as a takedown. But Aljo was like in college wrestling, that is 2 points scored takedown. That's where it also gets like confusing. But that's also this fight brings up the argument for scoring takedown. I mean, scoring defense on the cards because if Aldo was to do something while defending, it should have been scored because Marab wasn't able to succeed the position he wanted to. But the problem is Aldo wasn't doing anything. He sat there and yawned while
Hmm.
he was actively giving Marab the points for the round.
Yes. Yeah. It was. I 100% agree with Aljo too, which kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth for me to say because I'm not the craziest Aljo fan. I'm not an Aljo hater though. I'm not an
Yeah,
Aljo hater. But yeah, it definitely. I agree. Jose has, regardless of anything, Jose Aldo's been in the game long enough. He knows what it takes to win, and he knows he didn't do that, whether he'll admit it or not. When he watches back, he'll know.
yeah,
So that's kind of all I really have to say about it. When
mhm.
we can't call somebody the goat of his weight class and such a legend, and then like be upset that he thought the fight went his way when it clearly didn't go his way. He should
Yeah.
be able to know that. But anyway, fight of the night, at least voted in by the UFC. fight that I wasn't necessarily excited for. Paulo
Me
Costa,
neither.
Luke Rockhold. Paulo Costa got the win, by decision. That fight, like an acid trip. I felt like I was high.
Insane.
I didn't even
Crazy.
know what I was I didn't even know what was going on. What did you have to think about this fight?
This fight was absolutely insane. I mean, I was watching it and I was like, what is happening? Luke's hands down, fully just standing there in front of him, back against the cage, mouth wide open, just blood dripping. Paulo just standing in front of him, just nailing him. I'm like, what the hell? I had Rockhold going out. Like, I was like, I think Paulo's gonna get him out the first round. I think it's gonna be first round knockout. Yeah, I was completely wrong. Luke's a dog, dude. Like, holy wow. Props to him. And there was a time this like in the second round when he rocked Costa, and I was like, there is no way. There is absolutely no way Rockwool's about to finish Paulo Costa right now. It was,
Hmm.
I think it was a little like people were like it was like one sided. I think it was a little back and forth sometimes because Paulo was getting rocked as well. I mean, in that third round, the blood, the blood smearing. I nothing ever seen before. But honestly, props to Luke because he knew he couldn't do anything. He knew he wasn't gonna win unless he finished him. So he was just like almost like a "f you, dude," just smear him. And I thought it was pretty awesome. I mean, like I was like standing up. I was like,
Right.
yeah, yeah. It was crazy. That got me pumped up. Like, yeah, it was awesome.
So MMA, like social media, Twitter, Instagram, have really been like, and like YouTube media people have really been big on this idea, and it's like really split to where, was it like kind of embarrassing and kind of rough to watch Luke Rockhold fight the way in the condition he was, where he's putting his hands on his knees, during the fight, not talking to his coaches, can barely do anything really, and then would just pop out? Or is that more of an admiral thing to watch somebody because he is a legend, because he was still able to go out there, he didn't get finished? I don't have a strong opinion on how I feel, but I've seen a lot of people going back and forth about it. What would you have to say about that?
He definitely didn't look professional in the fight. After the first round, when I saw his hands on his knees, the first thought that came to my mind was Israel Adesanya. Because when we see him in his corner, never breathes out of his mouth, always standing up, you never see him take a seat, always just so composed with his breathing and just on it. And then you just see just hands on the knees, like gas. And I was like, this does not look okay. I was like, this doesn't, if this man was going in there, which to be honest, I don't really know why he fought again. He said it's because he wanted to go him because he had title aspirations. I mean, you can't go into a fight like looking like that. Yeah, it might have been the altitude because as we see, or as we did see, a lot of fighters did have struggles with the altitude this week, and he it just I think that's what made it such a trippy fight. Is it was it almost looked like a street, just like it was just almost like a street fight, just not really whole lot of technique, just throwing stuff and kind of overthrowing it and just like moving his body, just not composed.
Mm.
So I don't really know where that fits in the opinions, but I mean, I still give props to him for just going in there and just doing it. But if he wanted to prove something to the world, that wasn't really proving something. You were kind of just proving that you can fight and like have the dog in you, but that's I don't know. It didn't look great on his end.
Yeah, I think about Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena too, where a lot of people, it's an unpopular opinion, but I don't know why. But a lot of people are like, man, Juliana Pena put her heart into that fight. Juliana Pena put her soul. She was trying so hard, made it all 5 rounds. And in my head, yes, very impressive. Title fight, good for her.
Yeah.
But you have to fight to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a firm believer in not fighting to stay in. I think that's important if that's the point you get to, but you have to fight to win. And maybe that's, more of an argument in the case that I'm talking about with the Nunes fight, but definitely in this fight, Luke Rockhold was fighting to stay alive. He knew he
Yeah.
was going to retire after the fight, probably in the first 20 seconds, he knew he was going to retire.
He's like, I'm done.
And he wanted to make it through, but it's not like something I'm crazy impressed by either. But I'm never gonna like down a fighter on it, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm kind of in the middle, I feel like, which I feel like is kind of where you are as well.
Yeah, that's why when people had scored this is going to be my unpopular opinion of kind of this episode is when people said Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler was fight of the year, I didn't necessarily agree. The second and third round was a one-sided beating, and Michael Chandler just got praised for being able to withstand the beating he was receiving. Do you know what I mean? Like the second and third round, not to go into a different subject, but just in general, when we're talking about this, is it's just we praise, like sometimes we praise fighters like it was so good, blah blah, just for like staying alive, like you said. And so that's why when that was fight of the year, I was kind of like, huh, like I almost thought that Volkanovski versus Volk versus Ortega should have been because of the submissions, like how Ortega was finished and Volk came back. Like it was kind of a little bit back and forth at least.
Back and forth.
Yeah, and then it's just these fighters get praised for just almost like surviving. And so yeah, like props to him, like I said, but he definitely did rock him a couple of times, but it was almost just sad. It was I didn't want to see any more of it, if that makes. I was glad it ended when it did, and I'm glad he was honest on the mic, you know. He's like, dude, I'm old. Like I'm too old for this now. I can't be doing this anymore. So I mean, props to him, props for him for taking the cost to fight, which he didn't have to do, one of the top dogs in the division. And so yeah, but in terms of the fighting, it just, I don't know, wasn't the best we've ever seen.
Right. This isn't something I plan to talk about, but just because it came in my head, middleweight division, Paulo Costa's 6th now. Personally, I wasn't with, you know, that being said about Luke Rockhold, I really wasn't impressed with Paulo Costa's performance either. However, he fought to win at least, you know, and that's something like, you know, they want to dog Israel Adesanya, for example, my favorite fighter in the UFC, where, oh, he didn't go get a knockout like he said he was going to. First off, I'm just going to go on a side rant real quick because why not? Israel Adesanya, he doesn't, okay, he's a UFC fighter. He promises a knockout. I think every fighter should try to promise a finish. Whether, you know, you're a jiu-jitsu artist and you want to promise a submission, or you're a knockout artist and you want to promise a knockout. You don't want to promise a decision win. I promise I'm going to get it done in 5 rounds. No. Yeah. You train hard. You want to win that fight. So, like, when Israel wins these clearly dominated fights, where also he did what he needed to do because his opponents aren't giving him much. They're not trying to take him down. Like Robert Whittaker's the closest, but they don't want to come in and volume strike with him because they're afraid to get knocked out. Even Jared Cannonier, somebody who had knockout power.
Yeah, and I believed in,
the cage the entire time. And Israel would come in, boom, 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 come out. Boom, 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 come out. It's not just 5 leg kicks and a jab like everybody says on Twitter. He's a legitimate contender. So I say all this to say, you know, if you're losing, you have to fight to win. But if you're winning, you don't have to fight to get the knockout.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, obviously it's important to want to finish your fight. But like in an example, like Israel, for example, or like Kamaru Usman in round 5 of his last fight, you could tell they were more laid back because they don't need to get the finish. Yeah. So anyway, sorry for the little rant, but
no, I agree with you 1000%. I have a strong opinion on that too, and I 1000% agree with you about Israel Adesanya.
Yeah. So Paulo Costa's at 6th, and he isn't a champ. So he not only does he have to win, he kind of has to prove himself more. Whereas Israel is champ, he has nothing to prove but to beat his opponents. So what does this really do for Paulo Costa in the middleweight division?
So I think maybe Brunson would be a good fight. Brunson's available at the moment. That'd be interesting. Something that I liked, that because I always watch fighter YouTube channels, and I like their takes because they understand. Michael Bisping, credit to him. He was like, this win didn't do much because it's almost as if Paulo fought a ghost. Because since Rockhold retired after it, it's just like, well, you beat him, like cool for you, but what does that do for you? Man hasn't fought in 3 years, hasn't won in 4, retired right after, wasn't even in the rankings. So it's just kind of a hard situation. I don't think he proved himself that greatly, to be honest. I mean, people were like he's back in it, blah blah. He got rocked by someone that, once I said, hasn't fought in 3 years, hasn't won in 4, has gotten knocked out. Like, he didn't look amazing. So I think a Brunson fight would be good, both coming off losses, both free agents at the moment, just to kind of see who's still in the game, if that makes sense. Because Brunson's older. Paulo just won after a 2-fight lose streak. So these two would be good just to see, like I said, who's still in it.
Yeah, and not to say, like, I kind of am starting to like Paulo Costa. Like, my favorite in middleweight besides Israel has been Marvin Vettori for a while. Like, Paulo Costa coming out with the secret sauce.
That's funny.
You know, blasting USADA. You know, like, and like even in his post and like conferences and stuff, like he was like pretty entertaining. And like I hadn't really seen that side of Paulo Costa. Maybe he's got his confidence now, he's making weight, or I don't know. But I not to say I don't like the guy. I just I agree. I think Derek Brunson would be a good fight, and I kind of hope that's where the UFC goes, because I think it's best for both of their careers, like you said.
For sure. Yeah, and I think he's, in terms of personality, I think he almost got humbled, because when he fought Izzy, pissed me off. I was like, silence.
Right.
But I just think after him losing, he's like, okay, I just think he's kind of brought back down to earth. So I think he's like funny. Yeah.
So now we go. We'll see how long we go with it. Welterweight title bout.
Wow.
Kamaru Usman, first Jamaican or
first Jamaican-born champion.
First Jamaican-born champion knocks out Kamaru Usman.
Wow.
What do you have to? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, let's just talk about, before technical. You're watching it live. How did you feel watching this knockout?
Well, I literally sent you my immediate reaction, because that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh my gosh. So as I was watching the fight, it was the 5th round. I was almost sad, because the thing is, I didn't want to see Kamaru lose, but I didn't want to see him win. I wanted to see the underdog win. I want to see Leon Edwards succeed. So it was kind of hurting me a little bit. You could just see, like, a part of us MMA fans, like, we've seen Leon accelerate. We just knew it looked like he was frozen. It looks like he was stuck. So I was just watching the 5th round. And at this point, I was still watching, just kind of zoned out at this point. Like, okay, only like a minute left. Like, whatever, it's going to, Usman, pound for pound king, great, did what he does. Then all of a sudden, I just like see Usman on the floor. And for a second, I was like, oh shit. I was like, because it was kind of like a wide shot. So I was like, someone just got knocked out. And then it zoomed in, and I hear Joe Rogan, or I hear John Anik, and knew it. And I was like, what? Everyone in the room sat up and was like, sat there, no joke, for like 2 minutes, just like seeing Leon on the octagon side, like as Kamaru usually does, that famous picture of Kamaru on the I was like, and seeing Kamaru knocked out on the floor, that's something I never thought I would see ever. Him out cold, completely folded, knocked out before going down. I was like, But then I was about to cry, just because a girl, and like I was like sentimental, the underdog. I was like, dude, I had tears in my eyes because of how happy I was for Edwards. And so
for me, I really wanted Leon to win. No sympathy for Usman. I don't like the guy. And like, even like they were like the whole, hype up promo videos, and Usman's like, they're like, yeah, you're top pound for pound. He's like, I don't care about being top pound for pound. I just want to be the best. Then I'm like, ugh, like just such a stuck up answer. Anyway, so I'm watching the fight with my friends, and Leon gets the takedown in the 1st round. And at this point, I'm standing, and I'm like, let's go. That
was insane.
And then I'm standing for the 2nd round still, and I'm like, all right, he lost that one, but here we go. He's gonna get it back here in the 3rd. And he didn't, and I'm still standing. And then by like the 4th, I sit back down, and then like the last round, I'm just kind of like, come on. And then it happened, and my eyes were like, it was like
crazy.
Definitely woke up everybody in my house who was asleep. I started screaming. It was so, like you said, folded and knocked out. And then not only that, he was cold out for a good solid while.
And his eyes were open, which was freaky.
Yeah. He was out, like out cold. And I was like, And then Leon started hitting the McGregor walk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he's on the cage, and I'm literally like, what just happened?
A fever dream.
Literally. So even before we get no here, this will be the first topic of this fight that I want to kind of talk about is I don't and I think people are starting to change their mind on this since Saturday night. But I don't believe in lucky shots. I've never just in UFC in general, there is no such thing as a lucky shot. My reasoning for that is these guys train to do exactly what they do, knock out people. So whether it was like timed perfect and he threw at the right moment and everybody's like, that's luck, that's luck. In my head, I'm thinking, no, this guy trains really, really hard. I'm not saying he trained this exact move, even though Edwards did, and we've now seen video of him and his coaches talking about, oh, look, he parries to the left and then kicking. And so that's like that's kind of why people are changing their mind. But I don't believe in lucky shots in MMA. What do you think?
No, I don't either. Even when it comes to the Juliana fight, Juliana versus Nunes, the first fight, Juliana went in there. She's like, because Amanda's never pressured. Amanda, people never go in there to brawl with her. And Juliana did that. And that scared Amanda. And she planned to do that. Because you can't just go in there and like kind of like scare the fight. You have to go in there and brawl with her and show that you're tough. And Juliana did that. And she exploited Amanda's weakness. Amanda wasn't expecting that. And she capitalized on that. And so I didn't even think that was a fluke. I just think Juliana got the better of her. I mean, Juliana got the better of her that night. It wasn't lucky. She trained to do that. She trained for that, knowing that she had to go in there and defeat Amanda Nunes. And that's what she did. And where for this fight, too, you see like Michael Bisping posted a video on it, literally predicted the left head kick. There's a bunch of people that were like, he's going to have to watch out for that head kick, the left, blah, blah. Like a good amount of fighters saying that. And I mean, I think Leon's corner had a big part in this because what they're saying, they're like, you have to do it. You are losing right now. You are losing. And I think that's great because sometimes we see corners praise their fighters when they shouldn't be praised in the moment. And so I think they need that fire in them. And I think that just awoke him going into the fourth round. They're like, you have to do this. You have not gone through everything you have gone through in the past couple of years, the ups and downs to get to this moment and lose the way you are right now. So you need to go in there and finish it. And I think that awakened Leon, and I just think he saw the perfect opportunity. And it's all skill. He trained that. It wasn't a lucky headshot. It wasn't. I mean, Usman hasn't been finished. He's never been knocked out. He's been submitted in like what, his second pro fight?
Like ever.
Yeah, ever. Yeah. And so that's not a lucky thing. You knocked out the number one pound for pound fighter in the world, almost tying Anderson Silva's win streak, like champion of the world. That's, you can't, I don't know how to explain it. Luck doesn't defeat that.
Right.
Like they have to mess up. He researched what he does and then he got it and he capitalized, and it just happened to be in the fifth round, but it's amazing how he did it.
Yeah, I think what you said about the coaching too, I think is really valuable because look at like Jose Aldo fight where his coaches kept telling him, that was your round, that was your round. And obviously you're going to be biased towards your fighter because number one, people forget these coaches get paid more if their fighter wins. That's a thing, and it's fair. So they want money. And they also just want to see their fighter really win. A lot of them are friends in real life outside of training.
Almost like parent figures to them, parental figures.
And how I feel is if you really, really do care, it's more important to tell them if they're losing.
Yeah.
So like Edwards, for example, I think it's more admirable to say, Leon, you're down. You gotta finish him.
Yeah.
I feel like that shows that they care more than trying to bring them up in a moment that they shouldn't be brought up. I firmly believe I'm bringing them down to earth if that's going to help them come out and do what Edwards did. Yeah, so and new. I mean, do you have anything else to really say about the technical side of the fight?
I mean, not really. We also do have to give props to the champion, Kamaru Usman, because he did look great in the first couple rounds. He was doing what he does. He got caught. It happens to fighters. It happens, it happens. And it wasn't even luck, but it's like I'm saying, Leon did that. He just got him that night. But also, as much as I'm happy for Leon, props to Kamaru Usman. It's probably a rough time for him right now. I mean, yeah, it just did lose that 15 fight win streak, pound for pound, everything going on. But he looked great, and he fought a championship level fight. He just got caught, and it's just, and Leon just knew where to capitalize at that moment. And so we'll see how it looks in third. It just reminds me of Amanda versus Juliana. Let's truly see who, like, let's see if it was really in the fans' eyes a fluke, or let's see if he got the better of Usman and if he will again.
So definitely, I agree that Usman's performance was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thing on Usman. I think he's a cheater. I genuinely think Kamaru Usman cheats in like a lot of his fights, where he grabbed the cage multiple times throughout the fight, which Leon Edwards did grab the cage once. So I can't necessarily get on Kamaru too hard for that. But not only that, obviously didn't poke him in the eye. Obviously wasn't an eye poke. And an under the belt shot. No. And we've seen this out of Usman before, where guys have kind of hit him towards there, and he plays his role, and he's the champ, so he gets the call. I think he's a cheater. I genuinely think that those low shots to Usman is a weak point in his game. I don't think that he's made for those low punches, which is why in other fights you'll see him act like he got hit below the belt when he didn't. So as much as I do give Usman props on being very dominant, I also think a lot of the reason he kind of is dominant sometimes is because I don't know how else to say. I mean, it's funny to say he's a cheater.
Yeah.
But he breaks the rules.
He takes advantage
in terms of himself. So he's a cheater.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if you have a take about that, but that's kind of how I feel about Usman.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have like a take on it, but I do think it was unfair when Usman did grab the cage, I think twice. And then I do, Leon's was a little more evident, like when he like kind of fully pulled himself up there, which was a little more gave Leon a little more advantage, but it was unfair that they didn't dock him or anything for that. And even the commentators were saying that. They're like, well, Usman did this before, why nothing happened. So that was a little funky. But Usman, this third fight, I really think too that the altitude had a big factor, because that is I've been to Salt Lake, I've been skiing up there. I go up a flight of stairs and I'm done. Like I am done for. So I'm excited to see how Edwards performs. And sounds like it's going to be London, hopefully Wembley Stadium, or not London, England. I forget where Wembley is in England. If it is in London, right. Not sure. Anyways, if that will, I mean, go to his advantage, because Kamaru training in Colorado is already that is a huge step up, because altitude is tough. We saw it with every single one of the fighters on all the fights. So I just want to see how Edwards performs where he trains at sea level without the extra pressure of the elevation affecting his performance.
Yeah, I do too. And I do hope that it is in England. I think that'd be really fun. And I think we can both definitely agree, and I think most of the UFC world can agree, that's the fight to make. We need to see the trilogy fight. Oh, yeah. That's definitely the fight to make. So, looking at pound for pound, I know we're both very, very happy, because who has deserved it for the past 5 months?
Yeah.
In my opinion, Alexander Volkanovski. Has it been 5 months? Ever since he beat Zombie, I've thought, put this dude at number 1 pound for pound. Just this, because my kind of only thing on pound for pound rankings, because I usually agree with them pretty good, is I think relevance needs to be taken in more seriously. So like Usman hadn't fought in a long time. So strictly off relevance, not because he wasn't deserving of number 1 pound for pound, I don't think he should have been number 1. Yeah. I do think he should have been there. I'm not saying, well, he hasn't fought in a year, take him off the list. No, I'm not saying that. But Alexander Volkanovski's been so dominant this year. I don't know how he couldn't have been at 1.
Yeah,
so now
no,
he is.
For sure. This is probably my biggest argument for the longest time, going back and forth with people. I mean, people can still disagree. they all have their opinions, but their one excuse was, yeah, well, when Kamaru defends his belt, like he's like when Kamaru what? Like when he what? Anyways, it's just like I said, I like Kamaru Usman, but just what okay, people's like when I had brought this conversation up about how Volk should be number one pound for pound, a lot of counter arguments were considering, well, Kamaru broke his hand, that's why he hasn't been able to fight. When a fighter gets injured, what does the UFC do? The champion specifically, they create an interim belt. They move on. They don't just hold that one space. That was one of my arguments. I mean, it's true. Volk was more active. He fought 2 times since Kamaru last fought and dominated. And one of those fights against a fellow pound for pound fighter in Max Holloway, dominating him all 5 rounds. That should have been the main factor. Him completely destroying all 5 rounds, one of the best featherweights of all time, number 6 pound for pound fighter in the world. So yeah. Technical difficulties real quick. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Cool. We can edit it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that means this is crazy. So if people know me, and you don't really know this, Tori, but I am not the craziest Charles Oliveira fan. I do respect him a lot, but I'm not the biggest fan. However, this will make all the people that know I don't like Charles happy, is they have Israel, who is my favorite current UFC fighter, at 2, and Charles at 3. Here we go. People who say I'm too tough on Charles, I think Charles should be at 2. I really do. I think that Charles is almost, I think if he beats Islam, he's definitely considered the best lightweight of all time. And then how far he goes after that is going to for sure put him in GOAT conversation if he can get that win. And I just think he's done a little more than Israel has done, pound for pound sake. So I think Charles should be at 2, Israel at 3.
Oh wow, yeah.
What do you think? Do you disagree? As a big Charles fan? That'd be ironic.
I think no, it's okay. I think that was like it just really depends on how you look at the pound for pound list, to be honest. I mean, you look at Israel's title run, how many people he's defeated, how long he's been champion, but he did lose recently last year. Charles hasn't lost, and he has like what 11 fight win streak right now, 2 title defenses, won the title, 2 title defenses, top finish, like finished all of them. And so I mean, you might have just changed my mind, because I was like, okay, I think it's set. I think you just changed my mind a little bit because I didn't really deeply look into it that way. But yeah, he should be number 2 pound for pound, especially as of right now.
And the caliber of opponents that Charles has beaten, where it was Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, which are
Michael Chandler too.
And Michael Chandler. I mean, great opponents. Now, I can't fault Israel for not fighting the toughest opponents because he's beating everybody in this weight class.
Yeah.
That's why they have to take guys like Alex Tejeda and push him up so early, whether people like it or not, because those are the fights to make. Not even because the drama and the ticket sales that'll do. It's because who is he going to fight anymore in middleweight? So just what have you done for me lately? You know, that's kind of how I feel. And I think Charles has done a little more. So I think Charles should be at 2. Izzy at 3, but UFC ranking has Israel at 2, Charles at 3, and I'm not going to cry about it. I think that's perfectly fair too. Then they have Usman at 4. I'll just go on a list. Usman 4, Francis Ngannou 5, Edwards 6, Aljo 7, Dustin 8. We'll just stop there. So Usman drops to 4. What do we think about that?
Yeah. I mean, he's not the champion of the world anymore. He did just lose. He lost. All the other ones are on win streaks right now. He lost. So I mean, I think that's fair. I don't think he should have been number 2 or number 3. Those definitely well deserved to the champions of the world right now. And yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I even think he should be 5. I mean, Francis is still champion right now. He's still I mean, he's still champion of the world right now. He's still on a win streak, still winning. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it both ways. I could see Usman possibly getting bumped down one more, and
Mhm.
then Francis at 5. But I agree with you. And then Edwards at 6.
Valid.
I think that's
Yeah.
pretty fair. I think that's valid.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Valid.
11 fight win streak now.
Yeah, he's the champ.
Crazy. Yeah.
Knocked out the pound for pound, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fair. And I can see if Edwards keeps winning, I can see him moving up into like top like 3 discussion
For sure. Yeah.
because if he can beat Usman twice, like
Yeah. I mean, if Edwards wins this next fight, he should definitely be above Francis because Francis does only have one title defense as well.
mhm.
So I mean, he definitely could be in the top 5.
And Francis is kind of in the same boat with Israel, where in my opinion, it's like, what have you done for me lately? He fought Gone, right? And that was
In January.
in January.
Mm-hmm.
And now who is he even like? Who knows if he's even gonna keep fighting in UFC? And
Yeah, it's a open. That's just that whole thing is confusing. I mean, they're talking about doing an interim title bout between Stipe and Jones, which I think is like another interim champion. Like I'm confused with the whole Francis situation. In terms of like contract and the money. I don't know whether if it's all because of the money or whether he's hurt. It's just there's a lot of factors in when it comes to him and his fighting.
right. So then we both agree Leon at 6 is fair. Aljamain at 7, over Dustin. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. So then after 7, I feel like UFC took a bunch of fighters and wrote their names on paper and then put it in a bowl and just picked who they want. Because I really think that most of these guys are deserving, but the order is out of whack. So they have Dustin 8, Davison Figueiredo at 9, Yuri Prohashka at 10, Max Holloway at 11, John Jones at 12, Stipe at 13, Piotr Jan at 14, and Brandon Moreno at 15. So right off the bat, I love Dustin. He's one of my favorite fighters. He's one of the reasons I don't like Charles that much is because
He is
because
my favorite.
I think Dustin is the closest fighter to almost beat Charles out of all of his opponents.
Oh
And
yeah.
I just think Charles got so
Yeah.
it just
It was
makes me
hard to watch.
upset. Yeah, it makes me upset. But with that being said, I love Dustin, but he shouldn't be over guys like Figueredo, Yuri Prohashka, or Brandon Moreno, who's at 15. They have Piotr Jan over Brandon Moreno, which I love Piotr Jan as well. But what has he done? I mean, yes, he is the number 1 contender in bantamweight right now. But besides that, like bantamweight, you have to, in my opinion, you have to be really, really dominant to make the pound for pound list, which is why Aljamain Sterling is at 7. Like, it's so hard to put a bantamweight really high on pound for pound.
Yeah.
And even Aljo's at 7. So why is Peter Yan at 14? And then I don't necessarily mind Max Holloway at 11. I still think Max Holloway's very good, but I do think he's going to start tailing off on his next fights now. But as of right now, I do think he is top 15 worthy. John Jones, I mean,
he shouldn't. I'm sorry, this might be a little thing. This man hasn't fought in 2-3 years. He shouldn't be on the pound for pound list.
The hardest thing,
he hasn't fought at all. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. The hardest thing with UFC is John Jones is whether you think he's the GOAT, he's, in my opinion, he is the best pound for pound fighter of all time. So like it's kind of hard to take that guy off when he's still an active member. But yeah, Tori, like I said earlier, relevance. What have you done? Nothing.
Yeah, pound for pound's about the pound for pound fighters right now.
Right.
John hasn't fought since 2019,
2020.
I forget, or early 2020 or late 2019. How is he? Yeah, I don't know. That's a discussion, but yeah.
And that's why UFC updates their list. Like that's the craziest thing to me is UFC every 2 weeks updates their entire like rankings, and they look at guys like Francis Ngannou and say, "Oh yeah, keep him at 5." Yeah. Oh, Kamaru Usman, keep him at 1. And I don't know. But for the most part, I don't think pound for pound is all that off because I think they have all the right fighters. Just the order is kind of weird. But I think they have the top 5 down good. I would even argue to say top 7,
Yeah.
like pretty
Pretty solid, yeah.
perfect. So like whether I might disagree with some minor things, I think they got
Mhm.
all the right guys there and they're all close enough. So
Yeah. Sure.
there's pound for pound list, right?
Yeah.
So that's everything that's kind of happened
Hmm.
in UFC. There's some things to look forward to. Obviously, Tori and I aren't going to give our breakdowns right now necessarily of these fights because we haven't researched them enough. Some
Yeah.
of these came out like a couple of days ago of the
Sure,
time
yeah.
that we're recording this. And, we want to give good breakdowns, but we can talk about these fights and we can talk about
What we think about
what
the
we think
matchup.
about them. So that's what we're going to do. So Carlo Esparza and Wei Jingliang got announced.
I am
UFC, by the way, UFC 281 is a stacked card now. And
insane.
there's other
Insane.
fights that got announced. UFC 280, I was like, yeah, UFC 280 is going to be awesome. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
UFC 281 is going to be awesome. And UFC 282
It's looking
also
real
is
good too.
probably going to be awesome. So UFC is really trying to like have people buy pay-per-views and not stream them illegally. Like,
Yeah. They're
because
redeeming themselves, yeah.
these fights have been good. So what do we think about this? Is out of all the fights we're going to talk about, I'm really excited for this one.
I
So yeah,
am
New York.
awesome.
What do we think?
I am most excited for the fight. She is my favorite female fighter probably of all time. She is like probably she's like the definition of a badass. Like literally a dog just like gets in there and she's awesome. Even for her versus Rose's fight, I had arguments of her winning. Like I was like, I think she might be able to take it, but Rose, I believe, won by split decision. Just the sweetest soul goes in there and fights almost like an Oliveira. Just every time she steps in the octagon, she's going in there to fight. She is not going to play it safe. She will fight you her hardest that night, and she is so entertaining. And I think she takes it. I think she takes it very, very decisively from Carla Esparza and dominantly. And I'm really hoping she does too, because she deserves it. I mean, especially with that knockout of Young Chaychek. I mean, just crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for her all the way. I think she's gonna take it. I mean, I know we're not doing predictions, but I'm gonna do my little early. I'm gonna go like by like knockout. Don't know a round. I'm gonna say she knocks Esparza out.
So Wili is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, and Carla has won her last 5 fights in a row. Wili is I love as a Muay Thai fighter myself, such a good Muay Thai fighter. Probably the best Muay Thai fighter in strawweight division easily.
For sure.
Her stands, her kicks, her jabs, her elbows, her knees are always so pure to me. And I think another thing is not only is she good with her Muay Thai, but she actually uses it. There's a lot of female fighters recently who we've called these great strikers who aren't striking as much. It's like they got scared after, Nunes Pena, and they're like nobody wants to strike anymore.
Oh yeah.
But like, wait, like she don't care. She's gonna come in there and brawl. I will talk about the Cookie Monster though, Carla Esparza. I think that she gets a lot of unnecessary hate.
Yeah.
She's on a 5-fight win streak, mind you. She might be higher actually. She's won her last 5 fights. She's 19-6.
Yeah.
And yes, was her last fight versus Rose impressive? Was that
It was
probably
the best fight of all time. Like,
if I was like the scorekeeper and they were like holding a gun to my head and they're like, you have to get it right, I'd be dead. Because I don't how do you even I mean, there's ways to like score a fight if this isn't happening and this isn't happening, but nothing was happening, right? But there's a reason Carla Esparza was put in the position for the belt, and whether her fight was entertaining or not, she beat Rose.
Yeah.
So like whether she beat Rose, I gotta keep my continuity and my point with the same point with Israel, whether it was a dominating win, she won.
Yeah.
So the only argument would be if like the scorecards were like close and somebody could have scored it a different way. I don't think it was. I really, from what I was able to watch, I think that Carla won. So I think this is going to be a very exciting fight because a lot of people are going to sleep on Carla, which I took a long time to say that, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on Cookie Monster. I don't know who I think is going to win yet because of that, but I do know that I love Wili because she's probably my favorite female fighter to watch right now.
Yeah.
I love watching her fight. And I think a lot of people are going to sleep on Carla. And I think even this fight's 2 months out. It's coming up. I bet, the day before the fight, people are still sleeping on Carla.
1000%.
I think they're going to be surprised. So that's a pretty exciting fight coming up. UFC 279, the next pay-per-view coming up. Tony Ferguson versus Jingliang Li. I can't believe I got that right first try.
I'm just gonna go with the leech. I'll say the leech. The leech.
Yeah, I'm gonna say leech as well. Got announced for Las Vegas, Nevada. Very exciting fight. What do you think about it, Tori? I think it's an exciting fight. What do you think about it? You might not think it's an exciting fight.
Yeah, no. I don't
Yeah,
know
no.
I don't know how I feel about it. Like okay, Dan Hooker called out Tony Ferguson on Twitter. I was kind of getting hyped up for that. That made sense to me. Both coming off some losses, both need to prove something, almost like I was saying with the Costa versus Brunson thing, just to see who's still in it. Because I am a big fan of Dan Hooker as well. I would kind of be rooting for Dan Hooker in that fight. But I mean, Tony Ferguson made his debut in the UFC at welterweight, so we'll see him make the return back up there. Jingliang, I think I said that right, is 34 years old. He's 2-2 in his last 5 fights. I mean, obviously, his last fight, won by second round knockout, looked great. Fight before that got completely, utterly, horribly dominated by Khamzat Chimaev. Got picked up, shown to Dana White. Just not his best moment in the world. But what does this do for Tony, I guess, is my question. Does he want to stay at welterweight? Does he just want to fight? Is this the only fight that was he able to get? Does he want to stay down at light? Like, what does this do for him? Does he want that welterweight strap? Does he want to go for that? That's what I'm kind of confused about.
So yeah, that's something I didn't mention. This fight is Tony Ferguson moving up, or moving a different weight class. He's moving up, right? Yeah, moving up a weight class, which is important. And to answer your question, what does this do for Tony, right? In terms of his career, right? I can't really necessarily answer, what does this fight do for Tony 5 years from now? I don't know. I mean, he's 38, 4-fight lose streak. I can't really tell you what it does for him down the road. But right now, I like what they're doing. Tony Ferguson is still a very
still dangerous. Still very dangerous.
Yeah. Before he got knocked out, which by the way, like knocked out,
very badly knocked out. Yeah.
He was winning that fight. I mean, he was
knocked
fighting
Chandler down once or twice. Bad. Chandler was scratched up. Yeah, for sure.
So what does this fight do for Tony? Confidence boost. Stepping stool. Because yes, in case you haven't really heard the name Li Jingliang, it's not that big of a name. However, he's a very like good technical matchup for Tony from what I know right now, and I'm sure I'll do more research before the fight. And I think that Tony beating a guy like Li is going to help him boost his confidence. And then from there, he can kind of see what he has to do. Now, people might say, but he doesn't have that much in his career left. That's a good point. I really don't have much to say. That's actually a good point. Saying, well, if he wants to make one more run, why are they wasting fights? That's fair. But how I kind of feel about it is Conor McGregor. And it stinks because I know I'm wrong. But what I want Conor McGregor, and we'll talk about Conor later more, but what I want the UFC to do with Conor McGregor is I want them to build him up.
Yeah.
Want him to give him a confidence boosting fight, and then they can give him a big fight. Whether it's a title fight or not, whatever. But don't give him a big fight back. It's Conor McGregor. He will get sales, but they're not going to.
Yeah.
But they don't want to because it's Conor McGregor and they want to move him. It's kind of the same thing with Tony. So I understand it. I guess I am just excited because I want to see Tony win, and I think Tony does win it. Early prediction. So Yeah, I can definitely see both sides, but I don't hate the fight, I
I
guess. Some
don't.
people hate the fight
Yeah,
and I don't hate the fight.
I definitely don't hate it. I agree with you. With it being a stepping stone, I almost feel bad for the Leech because that's almost what he's been known as of lately. Just newer contenders are always fighting him. He's kind of the gatekeeper to that welterweight division. If I'm being honest, I mean, he has wins over Santiago Ponzibio, I think that's how you say it. And then he lost to Neil Magny, lost to Hamza, obviously. So he's just kind of been known as that stepping stool. And so, I mean, I'm excited to see Tony at welterweight. We'll see how he looks. I mean, hopefully, his last weight cut, you could see the age on his face a little bit. You can see him aging. He looked so. I mean,
Hmm.
hopefully, he'll just look better this fight. And I'm rooting for him. Not going to do a prediction yet because I'm not fully sure, but I'll be rooting for Tony.
Something I just kind of noticed is like, is is UFC 279 just like take a bunch of guys that are gonna win in dominant fashion card? Like, is that kind of what's happening? Like with like a lot of these fights, like now that I'm like really looking at this card, like it's just like, I mean, hey, I'll have to back it up with my predictions,
Yeah,
but like from what I'm seeing is like there's a lot of obvious wins on this fight. I'm not gonna say
there
what
is.
yet, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of obvious wins. So it's kind of like the UFC's just like maybe they want to get like some Instagram highlights and like be able to
yeah,
show some like cool highlights
exactly.
of like knockouts and stuff. But as
Yeah,
for like the actual UFC as a sport and a business, like this
yeah.
card sucks because it
It's
does
yeah.
nothing for anybody.
It's the thing about this card is they know it will sell no matter what. Nate Diaz is on the main card.
Mhm.
It will sell to, I always say I hate this term, but it will sell to the casual eye because all they want to see is Nate Diaz. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about the rest of the card. They don't care about the rankings. They don't care about who's going to win, who's not. They just want to see. So I think that is kind of the role that the card plays. In terms of like the one-sided fights, I mean, especially after last weekend, I'm like, dude, I don't even know like who Nate Diaz could literally choke Hamza Chimaev out for all I know now because of that last fight. Like, I forget this sport, anything can happen. No one is invincible. No one's invincible in this sport. Anyone can be beat at any time. So it's. I'm actually like I'm more excited for this fight now since last weekend because it raised my hopes because I'm like
Yeah.
it's MMA. You get hit hard enough, you're gonna go down. You're not in, you know what I mean? It's just you get choked hard enough, you're gonna go to sleep. So I'm excited.
What if, I know people in the comments might call me crazy, but what if Nate Diaz wins and then he gets a title shot and he wins the title and then Conor McGregor comes back and they fight for the title?
That would be
Wouldn't
awesome.
that be like
I
that's
would
like
pay $300 for that pay per view. Like I would give him my whole work paycheck for that pay per view.
yeah,
Like
that's a dream in my head, and
for
I don't know if
sure.
anybody else thought that, probably
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But
Like I was kind of like I was like, you know what? Well, okay. All I wanted to see as a fan was a Nate Diaz McGregor trilogy. I thought that's all that made sense. What other fight would wrong? They could make other fights, but I'm just saying I still want to see that. I still have a slight hope. Maybe it's gonna be like a Tito Ortiz Chuck situation where they did it for a third time in another organization. Don't want to see that because they might be older. That's kind of sad, but I just
mhm,
want to see it for a third time
yeah,
as a fan.
no, yeah, I get that. So we go back to 281.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a fight that got announced. Dan Hooker versus, I don't know how to pronounce this name properly, but I believe it's Claudio Puelles. That's, maybe I'll change how I say that. Up and coming. But very exciting fight because it is Dan Hooker. But something I didn't really know is this Claudio guy, which I am not really up to date on. Five fight win streak. 12-2 in his career, 26 years old
Wow.
versus 32-year-old Dan Hooker. Probably a fight I'll get more excited for as I do my research. But right now, Tori, what do you think about this fight?
I'm excited. I love seeing Dan fight. He's awesome. He's such a cool guy, and he's one of those fighters that I'm always rooting for no matter what in the matchup. Um, and we forget about he's under like that fight he had with Dustin Poirier is insane. That is probably one of the best fights of all time. Like that was a brawl, if you
Yeah, it
ever
was.
like just back and forth beating each
Hmm.
other up, just insane. Like think it might have broke him a little bit. I mean, he had that fight back at when he cut back to featherweight, gets knocked out by Arnold Allen. is like, I'm not going back down there, takes the early fight against Islam, gets finished in the first round. But that is not like understandable, but he did only have a month notice. So I mean, Dan Hooker is a very skilled mixed martial artist. He's still up there. He can still compete. People are starting to count him out a little bit. I don't think they should, because if you look at the past two circumstances, cutting down for the first time going to featherweight, facing one of the newer, very hyped up upcomers in Arnold Allen, and then the Islam fight, month notice again after a previous fight. So I mean, I have hope for Dan Hooker. He's one of my favorites in the division. So I'm rooting for him. I'm not gonna say yet because like once again, I don't want to do my prediction, but I'm definitely gonna be rooting for Hooker in this one.
So I partially agree with you in the sense that first off, Dustin fight was crazy, right? Lost to Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler is a very tough opponent.
Oh yeah, I did forget. I 1000% forgot about that Chandler knockout.
And then he gets the win over Nasrat Haqparast, which is actually a really good fighter.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, we're getting back on track. And then they book him for Islam, and he loses. And I'm like, okay, that's Islam. He's gonna lose to Islam, you know?
Yeah.
And then when he fights Arnold Allen, which yes, is a big up and comer fighter, is good, but he didn't look the same in that fight. And that's what worried me. So I guess this fight will kind of be the fight where I say, especially it seems like the UFC is booking this in favor of Dan Hooker. They say, hey, Dan, this is a guy who's got some wins, but we think you can beat him and get yourself back on track.
Yeah.
So the UFC is kind of throwing him an alley-oop, you know? He's kind of got to beat Claudio. So I am excited for this fight because of that. Not necessarily the opponent, but because I do like Dan Hooker, like as do you. I kind of hope he wins it, and it also just adds to the fun of UFC 281.
It does 1000%. Dan Hooker definitely does have name value too.
Yeah, he does. The Hangman.
Yeah, the Hangman, Dan the Hangman. He's awesome. I'm rooting for him. I mean, this is back up at lightweight, so I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, he trains at City Kickboxing, and this is, people start talking about this conversation. It's starting to happen more and more. Where is the UFC killing young fighters? And, sometimes they'll take a guy and, like Sean O'Malley, Paddy Pimblett, who they take a while to build them up, which is great. And sometimes they take a guy and they throw him into the wolves and they die. And I think that kind of started with Dan Hooker. I think Dan Hooker had a lot more potential and they kind of killed him. So I'm hoping that he wins this fight because then he can start that comeback.
Yeah. 1,000%.
So another fight that hasn't been announced yet, but both of these guys are talking back and forth. Dana White's talked about potentially this fight happening. Rafael Fiziev's calling out Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje's calling out Rafael Fiziev. I didn't know that these guys even wanted to fight each other at all. I didn't know that was such a beef between these two. But I love it and I think it's awesome. And what do you think about it, Tori? This fight hasn't been confirmed yet. Maybe it gets confirmed. Maybe UFC does something stupid with their booking or something awesome.
So right off the bat, I want to say the fight I wanted to see the most was Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 2. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I thought made sense. Both of them just came off losses to Charles Oliveira. And then I thought Michael Chandler versus McGregor. So that was kind of the matchups I had in my head. That's what I was hoping for. Obviously,
I also wanted Chandler versus
McGregor.
Really
I
bad.
just thought it made the most sense, but it's okay. And so now we have Rafael Fiziev, but I think it's going to be interesting because we had talked about this before, I believe, just how the lightweight division, it's just they're all fighting each other over and over again. Just always these guys just fighting each other again and again. And it's just it's always the same type of fights, if that makes sense. And because there's staples there and I feel like they're all just kind of trading off. So this is a fun little sidetrack. This is newer and it's exciting to see how Justin will do against a newer contender, because someone like Michael Chandler, we could predict how that fight was going to go, right? Against Charles Oliveira, we knew it was going to be a brawl. Against Habib, it was just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, we haven't seen these guys fight newer contenders at all. And so I'm excited to see I'm just excited to see a newer contender fighting a top guy, because I feel like it's just kind of recycled.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And not only that, but they want to fight each other. which I think is fun because there's some out of, cage beef there.
Yeah.
And stylistically, this is a fight for the casuals.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that I'm a casual hater. I I probably am a casual in a sense,
yeah,
even though I study all these fights. I love MMA, but apparently the world, and I've talked about this before. If you're not like a fighter, you're a casual, and I'm
yeah,
not a fighter. I wrestled, trained Muay Thai. I could probably go fight an amateur fight, and I'd still
yeah,
be a casual. So
yeah,
I don't like throwing that term around, but what I mean is striker versus striker.
yeah.
And not only is it striker versus striker, but it's guys who like to brawl.
Brawler versus brawler. Yeah.
So very, very, very exciting fight. I hope it gets booked because, like you said, there were other fights I wanted to see made, but they're not going to get made now. So what do we do? I mean, looking at, let me look. Let me pull it up. Yeah, why not? There's really nothing else you can do. And I actually think this fight helps both of the fighters,
For
which is
sure.
something I'm very passionate about talking about. Like when the UFC is making a fight, I want it to help both fighters. This fighter wins, I want it to help his career. If this fighter wins, I want it to help this career. It's kind of how I feel about the Hamzat Diaz fight. What
I
does that
don't think
fight
it, yeah, it
do
doesn't
for
benefit either fighter.
any of them? Nothing.
Not at all.
So that's kind of, I mean, they get money. That's the only benefit. They're in a main event,
Exactly. Yeah.
fight, but hey, whatever. But yeah, hopefully that fight happens. I wouldn't even be close to tell you a
Yeah.
prediction right now.
Me
Um,
neither.
I do like
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje, so I guess I'm a little biased, but I wouldn't be biased in my pick, so I don't know. So fight night fight that is confirmed: Cannonier versus Strickland,
Mm-hmm.
October 15th. First off, quick turnaround time, but not like insanely fast turnaround time like there has been others.
Mm-hmm.
But like for these guys, pretty quick turnaround time.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about this fight, Tori?
I'm excited. I mean, I can't like whoever wins. I'm trying to think of what that would do for them. Kind of. It's I've been saying this whole time. Just I think this is also a fight. Who's still in it? Like literally, like who can still be up in the rankings and who still deserves to be there. I just right off the bat, I'm just gonna say I believe Cannonier can get it done. He just has such good power, and especially after seeing Strickland get knocked out like that. I think Cannonier can get it done. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of Sean Strickland. He cracks me up. That man literally, like during that press conference for 7 to 76, yeah, I was dying. But I'm excited. It's division, both just lost. I mean, and who they just lost to, both fighting for a championship fight. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna be great. It's gonna be fun.
I don't think it's a contender fight necessarily.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think it is at all. However, for Sean Strickland, if he can beat Jared Cannonier and then Israel beats Alex Pereira, I mean he's beat Jack Hermanson, he's beat Uriah Hall. Maybe that puts him in contender.
yeah,
But as for Jared Cannonier, I don't think beating Sean Strickland is going to necessarily help him get back to the title instantly.
oh yeah,
But at the same time, if Israel beats Alex Pereira, I don't know what the UFC is going to do really.
yeah,
Maybe like Whitaker or Vittori, whoever win that fight, which is so
yeah,
boring.
yeah,
But and I mean, unless somebody comes and wins, because you never know, UFC is unpredictable.
for sure.
However, just looking at fighter versus fighter, very exciting fight.
It
I
makes
think
sense. Yeah,
they're both good strikers. I am upset that this is a fight night card, but I understand, the UFC wants to make fight night more important, so
mm-hmm.
they have to take bigger names and throw them in there, and that's what they're doing. Gon Tuivasa,
Yeah, for
Canadian
sure.
Strickland, Cheeto, Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking all these bigger names and putting them on, which makes me want to watch fight nights more.
Yeah,
But at the
exactly.
same time, it's taking away from pay-per-view cards too.
Yes, it is.
So there really needs to be a balance. And I don't know what
Uh,
that balance is, and I don't have an answer, so I guess I shouldn't complain too much. But
you
hey,
never.
I'm excited for this fight.
I'm very excited. I think Sean Strickland definitely holds more name value too, as well, just because how like just the way he talks. It's just everyone like it's hilarious. I mean, stuff he says, I'm like, did he actually just those words just come out of his mouth? And
Right.
so I think he's and especially with Jared Cannonier, he kind of gets like pushed a little easily. Like he seems very like. So I just think it's gonna be funny just seeing Sean just constantly just try to bigger at him and just like kind of poke him. And I'm
Right.
excited. I think it's gonna. I wish it was a fight week so we could like see a press conference because
Right.
he did so good in that press conference. But I'm excited. I mean,
I still think that Jared Cannonier is what Israel Adesanya called him, the dark horse of the division.
1000%.
I think he's very good. One of the most underrated knockouts of all time is when he knocked out Derek Brunson. When I watched that live,
Yeah.
I was watching it and I'm like, I thought he was gonna kill him. I have only felt that way a couple times, and that's one of them. I've never like watched like usually you see the knockout, Herb Dean's coming in, stopping the fight, and it's kind of over. Cannonier, the killer gorilla, looked like he wanted to kill that dude. And I literally was like watching it and I'm like, holy crap, this
Yeah.
is like intense. So very fun fight because I've thought that about Sean Strickland before, where he kind of has like that like dog, just
For sure.
aggression in him.
Power, hard hands, all the way through.
Yeah, I don't have a prediction. I think I lean more towards Jared Cannonier, but
Yeah, I think one of them's going down in the
yeah,
fight.
closer.
Both cannonballs of like whenever they punch with everything they have. So
Right.
I mean, we didn't obviously not see that in the card with they were previously
round.
on, but you do. So I mean, hopefully we
Right.
see that in this fight.
Yeah, for sure. So that's all of our fights that are going to happen, confirmed, possibly might happen. Something that I want to talk about, we mentioned this fighter earlier. Jon Jones has been training religiously, very hard, and he tweeted 282. Is this the Jon Jones return?
I hope to God it is the Jon Jones return. I've been waiting patiently. Everyone has been waiting patiently. I saw a poster, someone posted on Instagram. It was like Stipe, Jon Jones interim heavyweight title, and then below it, it was Prochazka versus Glover 2. And I was like, I thought it was real. I was like, oh my gosh, no way, it wasn't. But if it is potentially real, wow, I am dying to see this man fight. I mean, it's just build up, and he's talking all the time, and people, you can't listen to an MMA thing and not bring up Jon Jones. I mean, here we are bringing up Jon Jones right now.
Right.
It's like makes me anxious. I'm like, when is he going to be here? Like biting my nails, just waiting for it to happen. I am very excited. I want to see how he's going to do in the heavyweight division. Yeah, I want him to fight Stipe. I want him to fight Stipe, and I'm very excited for it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also very excited, and for me and for like the listeners who might not know, I am like I'm coming up on my second year of like really watching UFC. Mind you, I'm in love with it. I've watched every Jon Jones fight in the UFC on my own time. I've watched them, I've studied them. And I've never watched Jon Jones fight live. I never have. So it's like kind of one of those things where I'm like, as a UFC fan who's new to the sport, I want to watch Jon Jones fight.
Need it. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. And I'm like, I need to watch. I mean, yeah, it's awesome watching all these old, fights with Jon Jones.
To it live though. Nothing.
I want to watch this man fight live. It's just like for me, I talk about him so highly, that it would be so much easier for me to talk about him highly if I've actually watched him fight live. I've watched him all of his fights, but I want to watch it live. For me, I don't know if I want him to fight Stipe, but I think would it be a very, very, very entertaining fight? Yes, 100%. But I don't know. I just think as an Ohio boy, I love Stipe, and I don't want Stipe to get killed. I don't want this to be. See, either way, this will be a legend. This will be a legend killer fight. Really, I think that Jon Jones will still get big fights, but I don't know if Stipe does. But either way, none of them will ever get another title shot. I don't think. Like, whoever out of who loses, I don't think. I think they're just gonna continually go down until they leave the gloves in the mat.
I think whoever loses might retire. I mean, but I don't know if Jon Jones will retire, but it's so exciting for us as fans to see Jon Jones because since he hasn't fought in so long, it's almost like he has become this mythological character in our head.
Yeah, and not
like
only
he's
that,
not real. Yeah,
he's moving up to heavyweight.
He's moving up to heavyweight, so we don't. It's we've almost created this image of him in our heads that he hasn't even done yet. Him at heavyweight, he's gonna be the best in the world. He's gonna win. We don't know. We've created this image of Jon Jones. And he hasn't fought in so long, it almost seems mythical. It almost seems like he's not real or that it's never going to happen. It's almost like in our imaginations because we've just been waiting for so long as fans for this to happen. And so when it finally happens, I can't wait because it's almost going to be like a snap back to reality. Like this man is real. I forget sometimes because he hasn't. People talk about him like he's still current, still fighting. Like when's he gonna be fighting next? When in reality, he hasn't fought in 2 years. I mean, we don't know what's changed about Jon Jones. He's gotten older. Maybe he's gotten quicker. Maybe he's gotten slower. We don't know because we haven't seen. So I'm very excited to just see this new Johnny Bones Jones. I mean, it's going to be so interesting for us as fans. It's for everyone, for the fighters, just to see how good he is, if he's improved or if he's gotten just what he's been up to, basically. That's it. I'm just excited.
Yeah, because if early prediction. If Jon Jones wins his fight, that hasn't been confirmed yet, but hopefully 282, hopefully Stipe, because I do think it'd be an entertaining fight. But if Jon Jones wins really dominantly, I think that puts him right up in there. I think he gets to skip everybody.
What if 1,000%.
What if we get to see a Jon Jones like title run at heavyweight? That would be insane to me. That would be insane to watch that.
And he's is he 32 or 33?
He's young. He's still young.
He's definitely, and I forget too that because he came into the UFC so early that he is younger than a lot of these fighters. And so, I mean, the biggest thing is Jon always had struggles with people who had the same reach and were the same size as him. Example, Reyes, Gustafsson. I mean, it's just he's always had struggles. So we will definitely see how he gets tested in these fights. I'm excited. I'm happy they're not throwing him to Francis because I don't think that's a good idea. Francis, this is my opinion. I don't see Francis as human. He is just so powerful and so big. I don't see anyone beating him anytime soon. So I'm kind of glad they're not throwing him in there. That would almost give me a heart attack just because of how big those names are and how excited I would be for this fight. Like that would almost kill me.
Right.
So I'm glad they're not just throwing him in there right away. But I can't wait. Like I'm literally on the edge of my seat talking about it because I'm dying to see Jon Jones in the octagon again.
So am I. And so Jon Jones is 35, which doesn't really necessarily mean a lot. I mean, look at Glover, right? But Jon Jones has not lost a fight. Well, first off, he's lost one fight, but he hasn't lost that fight since 2009 in an Ultimate Fighter finale fight. That means this dude has won every fight versus everybody for 10 years. He's beat guys like Quentin Jackson, Rua. He's fought Victor Belfort.
Everyone.
Chael, Glover, DC, OSP, Dan Henderson, Anthony Smith. I mean, all these
generations of fighters. Literal generation. It's crazy. You look at his record. 12 title fight wins.
Yeah.
12 title fight wins. And people are like, well, Khabib had like 13, like was undefeated. Yeah, Khabib had 13 wins inside the UFC. Jon Jones had 12 title fight wins. It is insane, this man. No matter what, I'm not the biggest fan of him just because of the person he is. I mean, obviously being a female, his background, blah, blah. But you do have to separate the fighter you have to separate their life and how they are in the octagon. Second they step in the octagon, they're nothing but a fighter. I just look at that. Insane. Yeah. So technical, so well-rounded everywhere, just so strong and just it's crazy that this man's been able to go through generations and generations and generations of life.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about that's enough of Jon Jones. I do love him. I hope he gets in there. Hope he doesn't get in trouble. Conor McGregor is also ready to fight. What do we think about Conor McGregor? What do we think about Conor McGregor booking? I just like Conor McGregor is another fighter who I have gotten to watch a couple times, but I just like I didn't get to watch peak Conor McGregor. Peak people say that's the golden age of the UFC is like peak Conor McGregor. I didn't get to witness that. But I want to see Conor. He looks so good. Conor McGregor looks like he's ready to fight yesterday. Like he's ready to fight. What do we
fight at heavyweight? That man is big right now. I mean, wow. But anyways, I don't know who I want to see him fight anymore. I don't. Tony's booked.
Yeah.
That was an option. Justin might be booked. That was maybe another option. Chandler versus Dustin booked. Brett Okamoto had a interview with Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira plans to, if he wins his fight in Abu Dhabi, he wants to take a little break, go to Brazil, and I think like around January, and fight Conor McGregor in Brazil. That's what he said in that interview. He made it very straightforward that that is what he wants to do. He wants to fight Conor McGregor in Brazil if he defends his belt in Abu Dhabi. I mean, not technically defends his belt, but all of us as fans, we know he's
right.
I mean, go on. And so that's I think an option. That's kind of the only one, and the UFC would give it to Conor. They would, and Oliveira deserves that payday at the end of the day. He does, and so it makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it's something that is definitely possible. It can happen. They would do that. I mean, Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira in Brazil, that would be crazy. That would be insane. And both the men, just the payday for both these fighters would be insane. All the fighters on the card. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of unless he wants to go back up to welterweight, but who would he fight? It's just, if Usman loses again, maybe Conor versus Usman at welterweight. If he loses the title defense, I mean, that'd be interesting. Conor versus, what about Conor versus Colby Covington?
Yeah.
I'm not, okay, sorry, that's popped. I'm not mad at that fight either. That'd be press fun. Conference, that would be so insanely fun. That would be probably the craziest thing ever. I just thought of that, and I'm not mad at that at all. Colby's like, everyone's talking about Colby cutting down to lightweight. He wants to fight Dustin. Dude, push Dustin aside. Fight Conor. Get the payday. That would be the most entertaining fight week of all time.
Right.
So that's an option.
I just lost his name. Who are we talking about? Conor McGregor and Colby Covington is one of my favorite fighters to watch in UFC. And Dana White said he's ready to fight. I want to see Colby fight. Conor McGregor versus Colby would be insane, Tori. That's actually a good take. And that's the first time I've heard it. Yeah, that'd be really exciting.
I know. I just thought about that. I was like, hey, yeah.
The only thing that I don't know is things kind of got messed up for UFC because they wanted Khamzat to beat Diaz and then fight for the belt, which the whole time I've been saying no, because Khamzat beating Diaz does not give him a title shot just yet. I don't think it's fair. So I kind of wanted him to fight Colby Covington.
I wanted Khamzat and Colby as well, yeah.
I've wanted to see that fight, and now I think that fight actually happens, and I think that's a great fight to prove for Khamzat because Colby is an excellent wrestler with great cardio. What are the two things that people don't know about Khamzat? They don't know if his cardio is good, and they don't know if he's really a really good wrestler yet.
They don't know how he does against another wrestler.
Yeah, against another wrestler. You know, he's only fought strikers where he's able to lift him up and say, hey, Dana White, and then slam him. You know, so I think that'd be such a great fight for both of them, actually. But I'd love to see Conor versus Dustin, or I mean, Conor versus Colby too. That'd be awesome. Yeah. My thing with Conor is like, pretend Conor doesn't get hurt with his ankle, right? So he's ready to fight again. What would Conor have done then? Like, he wouldn't have fought Charles, obviously. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
If Conor wins, he fights Charles, right? Like, if Conor beats Dustin, then he would have fought Charles. But him losing without the injury, losing, twice to Dustin in a row, I don't know what that does for Conor. And the other thing with me is I've never watched Conor win. I've watched both of his fights. The only Conor fights I've ever watched was Dustin 1 and Dustin 2. Yeah. Which is another reason I really like Dustin, because I've got to watch him
beat Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor, which is like one of the greats, So for me, it's so hard to book a fight for Conor.
It is.
What weight class? Who does he fight? I genuinely.
Now, after I said that, I'm sticking by that. Like, I am sticking by Colby and Conor at welterweight.
I think that'd be a fun fight.
Big payday. 1,000% Colby would take it. I mean, I would hope so. I mean, he might want, because he probably wants to wait for the Kamaru versus Leon rematch to see maybe who loses he'd fight, maybe who wins, blah, blah. I think this is a great fight. It's a good filler. It would sell like crazy for the fans. Great merch, just great advertisement for the sport. Two of the best trash talkers and such different ways of trash talking too as well. My only problem was Colby would try to take him down, but if that I won't get into that because the fighting style. But it just made for a really entertaining fight, and
Here's a couple ideas, and I talked about this. I don't want to throw Conor McGregor into the wolves, right?
Mhm.
Let's say Dan Hooker wins his fight, or Tony Ferguson win their fight. Those are not bad fights to make.
Not at all.
Then give UFC a chance to happen, fights to come
All
out,
the place, yeah.
and then put Conor in a big fight. Dan Hooker versus Conor would be a really, really,
That'd be
that'd
awesome.
still be a hard fight to pick.
Yeah,
me.
also a well-deserved payday for Hooker.
Yeah, and Tony. Like if
Yeah.
Conor fought Tony. Also, what does the winner of Justin versus Rafael Fiziev do right now? If Rafael wins, I want to say that he gets a title shot. But if Justin Gaethje wins, I think he needs one more fight.
Yeah.
So maybe Justin Gaethje versus Conor is not a bad fight to make.
No, not at all. Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
who knows if like Rafael Fiziev versus Gaethje, it's not even like fully booked.
It's not confirmed.
Yeah, it's not confirmed. So we could still see Conor versus Dustin.
One of
Conor
these
versus
guys.
Dustin. So yeah.
Yeah, and that would be a good fight as well because that's a straight striking fight, which would be really entertaining to watch.
For sure.
So yeah, Conor McGregor, we'll definitely keep on the news with Conor and John Jones, for sure. Let's talk about this. Merab Dvalishvili mentioned in the MMA Hour that Jose Aldo said, "Hey, I just fought my last fight with you." It's not confirmed by Jose Aldo that he retired, but do we think that he's done?
I don't know. If he was, I think this would be a good place to end. Because, like I said, last fight wasn't a dominant. I mean, what if you look wrestling wise, dominant loss, but do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he got beat up. Like he was definitely in the fight, defending the takedowns, still played an active role defending those takedowns while during the fight. Yeah, I definitely think he can still beat the people in the rankings. I just don't think he can get the title. This bantamweight division is just so insanely stacked right now with so many younger upcoming contenders. And so it's just hard. But then again, he did just beat Cheeto not too long ago. So you bring that into perspective. But I think his legacy is built enough. He's so respected. I mean, he's
yeah.
For sure. And so I think it's a good time for him to just like you said before in the last podcast, retire before you let the sport retire you. And so I think this would be a perfect time for him to head out.
Yeah, I agree. If he does fight, I don't want him trying to make a title run because they're going to put him up against guys he'll probably lose to.
Yeah.
If Jose Aldo decides to fight, continue because it's not confirmed he's retired. I want to see him fight Dominic Cruz. I think that would be a good fight to make because these are both guys that after their fight, people said, yeah, they're old. Yeah, they lost. But dang, did they look good. Now, am I saying that Jose Aldo really looked good as in looks like he could get the belt? No. But I didn't look at Jose Aldo and say, wow, he's out of breath. You know, he's old. No. Never thought that. Never thought, man, he's just getting the crap beat out of him. Never thought that. I just thought he lost because the stylistic matchup for him wasn't for him. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I think he lost. Dominic Cruz lost because he got knocked out. Not because he was winded, not because he wasn't fighting good, but because Cheeto knocked him out. Like you can't do nothing about that. So that would be an entertaining fight to make. But then this is like dream fantasy world. I would love that fight to happen and then both guys retire in the ring together. They both put down the gloves, maybe have a little moment. Yeah. I think that would be because Jose Aldo and Dominic Cruz are very much both respect each other in the ring. Like they really respect their opponent. So I think it'd be such like a good.
I mean, the best bantamweight of all time and the best featherweight of all time.
Great.
As of right now.
Yeah, great little memorial fight. And UFC's done this with guys like, Donald Cerrone. They've done fights where it's kind of like two legends. Let's put them together and see what happens,
For sure, yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't hate that. But if that doesn't happen, I don't want to see Jose Aldo have to fight, any of these other guys.
Me neither. Yeah, no.
I don't want to. Yeah, because he doesn't have anything else to prove against them. If Jose Aldo continues to fight, I want him to fight because he loves fighting, but
Yeah.
I don't want him to fight because he thinks he has a shot at the belt because I don't think he does.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But like these are two things that haven't really been confirmed yet.
But they've been talked about for sure. And yeah, I'm not mad at that. I just would be sad either way, whoever would win. I wouldn't want to see either of them lose. And so that'd just be a little difficult. But I mean, both legends, it makes sense. Neither of them looked bad. Neither of them looked like they're older. Nothing. They just got the opponent got the better of them that night. Doesn't mean that they're out like completely out of it or anything. Dom looked great in the first couple rounds against Cheeto. Jose just got controlled. Like you said, stylistic matchup. He just lost. And so I think that'd be a good fight to make.
Yeah, there we go. So we're at the home stretch of the podcast. Last week, we talked about our top 5 best trash talkers in UFC. This week, we're going to talk about our top 5 best tattoos or fighters with tattoos. Mine's kind of a bias list, whereas I think it's like the best. But these fighters have great tattoos. Let us know in the comments if you made it this far and if you have an idea that we should do a top 5 for, because we'd love to look at that.
Yeah.
So Tori, you went first last week. I'll let you go first again. Who do you have top 5 tattoos in the UFC?
Alrighty, starting at number 5, Conor McGregor. I mean, just everything on it's just iconic. You see it, you know who it is. You could have a zoomed in picture. That's Conor McGregor. They're iconic and they're really well done, surprisingly, because there's a lot of UFC fighters with a lot of crappy tattoos. I mean, like bad tattoos. And so I mean, like his are great and they're iconic. I mean, how could you not put it on the list? Number 4. This is gonna be like weird. I have GSP and George St. Pierre with that little symbol he has on his chest. I looked it up on like kind of the meaning and it means jujitsu. It translates to jujitsu. I just think it's iconic. I just put that because everyone knows GSP, that one little mark on his chest. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the most iconic MMA tattoos. 3, I have Israel Adesanya, Broken Native. Just awesome. I mean, he explained the meaning behind it. It's so sick. I mean, just like imagine fighting just like Broken Native. It just looks so sick with the Africa on his chest. Then number 2, Max Holloway. Like I said, they're so symmetrical. I love the thing with symmetry. They're so symmetrical and the lines are so sharp. And I like the devil and the angel on his back. It's pretty sick. And then he has like his son's tattoo name. It's cool. And then at number 1, I have Cheeto Vera because his leg sleeve is like the Japanese kind of traditional. It's so sick. It's so detailed and it's like colored and it's one of the few very well done tattoos in the UFC because there are some horrible ones done in the sport. So I'm going to Cheeto Vera once just because of how nicely done his tattoos are. So that's gonna be my top 5.
There you go. Not a bad top 5. Mine's like I said, kind of biased, but I do love these tattoos. So number 1, when I think of UFC tattoos, I don't know why, I instantly think of Brock Lesnar and I think about the knife and the sword. I don't know why. It's what I think of. I just think of, I don't know why Brock Lesnar even comes to mind when I think of UFC, because it's not like he was crazy good. I mean, he was, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have that. And then I have Cody Garbrandt. Just in general, all of his tattoos are insane. The neck tattoo, I don't like neck tattoos. I think Cody pulls it off.
It's sick, yeah.
Yeah, Cody with the beard, with all of his tattoos and the neck tattoo, it works. And he's an Ohio boy too. Then I have Alexander Volkov, who he used to have the
ray on his back.
The ray on his back, but now he replaced it with this samurai.
It's so awesome.
And it's like colored and that's a really cool tattoo. And then number 2, I have Conor McGregor and specifically the Tigers. I always think about that when I see Conor. And number 1, I have my boy Israel Adesanya with the Broken Native. Not only that, he's a Avatar The Last Airbender fan, as am I, and he's got Toph on one of his calves, which is one of my favorite characters in that cartoon. So that's gonna wrap it up.
That'll be it.
Our second episode of Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. I appreciate you all who made it this far. Tori and I will be back next week for Saturday, September 3rd's Paris, France fight night card. We'll be talking about more confirmed fights that possibly happen because they happen by the day in UFC.
Exactly.
But we'll definitely be breaking down this card, and I'm not looking forward to it because I love Cyril Gane and I love Tai Tuivasa. So
Oh
it's
no, rough one. Definitely an emotional fight.
very, yeah, it's definitely a rough one for me. But we appreciate everybody who
You
watched
guys.
the podcast today. Tori, got any final thoughts?
No, thank you guys for tuning in. I mean, it's gonna be a weekly thing. It's just gonna get more and more exciting. And there's always new news coming up. So just we're always gonna be talking about new and upcoming stuff and our opinions. And if you don't agree with them, it's okay.
Cool. Sounds good. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. We look at all of them. We appreciate all of it. And that's it. My name's Alex Henry, and I'm with
Tori Haverl, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys. See you next week.